this is practice problem number 2 for chapter 21. And for this exercise here is in regards to some missing amounts that are displayed in the contribution margin income statement. And our job is to compute the missing amounts. So they have been so kind to provide us with some amounts here already. And what we have to do is just figure out what this puzzle, or complete this puzzle, and figure out the missing pieces within the puzzle. So it looks like they have provided us with the contribution margin income statements for both company A and then company B. So the first thing I like to do is just figure out the pieces, or complete the pieces that I'm able to complete based on the information or data that's provided to me. So however way you want to do it or where you want to start, that's up to you. But I'm basically just going to start off by filling out the missing pieces based off of the information that's provided that is going to allow me to complete some of the pieces here that are missing. So I'm going to start off with the contribution margin for company A. So they give us the sales, well, total sales, and then the total variable costs. And total sales subtract out the total variable cost is going to give us our total contribution margin. So I'm going to put in $208,000 in my calculator, subtracted by 150, 400. Okay, that's going to give us, let me see if I can write on this. There we go. That's going to give us $57,600. Okay, so from here, I can go ahead and figure out what the fixed cost is going to be by taking the contribution margin of $57,600 and subtract out the income of $46,400 for company A. And that's going to give me $11,200. And that is a subtraction there. Subtraction. Okay, now I'm going to move on to company B. So company B, looks like we have to kind of work our way backwards. So from top to bottom, or no, from bottom to top. So we're given our contribution margin and our fixed costs, which means that we can go ahead and figure out what the income is going to be by taking the contribution margin and subtract out the fixed costs for company B. So that's going to be, let's see, 43,450 subtracted by 19,750. That's going to give me $23,700. Okay. All right. So from here, I am going to go from bottom to top. So we have the contribution margin of $43,450. We have the variable costs of $39,500. So what I'm going to do in order to get the sales, which is letter F for company B, I'm going to take the contribution margin and add it to the variable costs to get me my total sales. So we got 43,450 plus 39,500. That's going to give me $82,950. And that's our total sales for company B. Okay. So now I'm going to see, okay, I'm taking another look at company B. And I can stay with company B if I wanted to, or I can go back over to company A. So what I'm going to do is actually stay with company B because I'm already here. I'm already there. So now I'm going to go over to the per unit column, and all letters here, they're all missing an amount. So for sales, we just have the total sales, but we do have the units that were sold. So in order to get the per unit number, we're going to have to take the $82,950, which is total sales, and we're going to divide it by the number of units sold of 1,975. And so that's exactly what I'm going to do right now. And that comes out to be $42 per unit. So I'm going to put the $42 right here per unit. Okay. Now, when it comes to the variable costs, the number of units that are sold, it is in proportion to the variable costs, total variable costs. So because of this, in order for me to get the per unit for the variable costs, I'm just going to simply take the $39,500 of total variable costs, and I'm going to divide it by the number of units that were sold, which is 1,975 units. So 39,500 subtracted, divided by 1,975. That's going to give me $20 per unit of variable costs. So for the contribution margin, I'm just going to take $42, subtract out $20. So $42, which is the sales per unit, subtract out the $20, which is the variable cost per unit. That's going to give me $22 per unit for contribution margin. Okay, that's one way to get the contribution margin. Another way is if they've provided the number of units sold and you have the contribution margin, specifically the total contribution margin, you could take the total contribution margin, which is $43,450, and divide it by the number of units sold if they provided, which is this case 1,975. That's going to give you your $22 contribution margin per unit. So that's another way. So company B is all completed. Now we're going to go over to company A and then figure out the missing pieces over there that's left. So we have letter A, which is the number of units that are sold. So for company A, that's missing. So in order to determine what the number of units that were sold, we're going to take the total sales of $208,000 and we're going to divide it by the $65 sales per unit. So 208,000 divided by $65 per unit. That's going to give us 3,200 units that were sold for company A. Okay, so variable costs. We can now figure out what the variable cost per unit is, should be based on the number of units that were sold. So since we've determined what the number of units were sold in company A, we're going to take the total variable cost of $150,400 and divide it by 3,200. And that's going to give us $47 of variable cost per unit. And to get our contribution margin per unit, we're going to take $65 and subtract out $47. So $65, which is the sales per unit, subtract out the variable cost per unit to get our contribution margin per unit of $18.